Today's guest is Gregg Braden, 5-time best-selling author, scientist, researcher, and speaker. What Gregg does is bring the newest and best scientific breakthroughs in his field to the masses so that we can apply them to our daily lives. And that is where we settle in this podcast, right at that point of understanding what are the newest things that we understand about ourselves, our consciousness, our neural network, and how we can apply that in our everyday life.
My primary degree is as a geologist. I'm an earth scientist. Under our feet, we have a magnetic field. There's something that is called Earth Magnetic Field Line Resonance Frequency. When we harmonize our heart and our brain and create coherence within our bodies, what we're actually doing is aligning to the very fundamental magnetic systems of the planet we live on. Now, once you have that coherence, you can do whatever you're going to do. You can do that. I'm a martial artist. You can do it before your martial arts.
It's a banger podcast. Most everything in here you can apply. It will be new to a lot of you. I love how simple Gregg keeps his processes and the way that he speaks. Enjoy this podcast. Leave us a review on Spotify or iTunes if you're listening to it there. And of course, check out our Rumble for more. And thanks to all our sponsors. Enjoy the podcast. Gregg Braden, how are you doing today?
Well, I am beyond awesome today. I'm coming to you from a studio just outside of Santa Fe, New Mexico. It's in the high desert of the American desert Southwest, about 8,000 feet above sea level here.
Okay.
And
so you're enjoying life.
I am. It's the first time you and I have worked together. This is completely unscripted. It's a dance, brother. I'm going to follow your lead and let's see where it goes.
Okay, perfect. So I thought it would be good to start this off with letting you know how I've come across you, because you've done a lot of speeches. You're a very eloquent speaker. You've been doing this for quite some time. So you're a guy that I look to learn from just on another aspect. But maybe 6 or 7 years ago, maybe it's only, time flies, but you were given a speech, and I think it was pre-recorded, about and now I think I wrote part of it down. They were discussing coherence, or you were discussing coherence. You were discussing the Gospel of Thomas, and in there you actually mentioned before that, I believe, Neville Goddard, and you referred to him and stuff. That was the first time I'd ever heard of Neville Goddard. You introduced him to me, sent me down a train of just, to the point that now I've got I've got a little poster and a saying from him there. So I have to thank you for doing that, because it has shifted and shaped my life in a way that's probably pretty unbelievable. And so that's where I wanted to start with, at least in general.
I'll share a story then that I don't think I've ever shared this story because there was no context. I was doing a book signing. So this is the 40th year that I've done this work in one form or another, as an author and a speaker and a scientist, sharing new discoveries. I was doing a book signing, and I believe the book signing was in Southern California. It was in San Diego. And, people come to the book signings, and often they have presents, they have gifts, and we have a whole pile of, my assistant takes that pile of gifts, and then we go back to the hotel and sift through them. And on this particular book signing, a woman came with a shoebox, and a closed shoebox. They're like this big. And it had a ribbon around it. We didn't open it until we got back to the room. And I opened it, and it was a shoebox of cassette tapes of live presentations from Neville Goddard. And it was the first time that I had heard of Neville Goddard. And I started going through those tapes and then researching his books. And, he, I think, is probably one of the greatest philosophers, certainly. And just when it comes to the insights of human potential, I think he was one of the pioneers in that human potential movement, and probably one of the least known. And I think a lot of that is because we simply did not have the communication. We didn't have the social media. We didn't have the fact that these were on cassette tapes speaks volumes, and I shared those with Wayne Dyer, who was I was a Hay House author. Wayne was a Hay House author. And Wayne wrote in, I think, at least one, maybe multiple entire books on the work of Neville Goddard from that. So So thank you for your compliments. Thank you for sharing how this all came together. You know that this work, there's a really beautiful place where science, the best science of the modern world, spirituality, not religion, but spirituality in the sense of us and our relationship with our bodies in the world, and human potential all come together in a really, really good way. And I think that's what this conversation is all about, because what Goddard was talking about was how do we implement the extraordinary potentials within the human body, and consciousness is a big part of that. The program where you saw me, where we were talking about coherence, this is the physiological potential. And as an athlete myself, I'm always interested in how can I be the best version of myself for whatever it is I've chosen to embark upon. I was a competitive runner in the 1980s, 1990s, when I was working in the corporations in Denver, Colorado. So these were high altitude events. I was a triathlete. I was a 3K, 5K, 10K, and 20K. And at that time, it was very common to have corporate teams. And this appealed to me. I had a tough childhood. I never got to do intramural sports. In school, I had to work. I had to go to work in a factory immediately after school. So it wasn't until I was in the corporations I got to actually compete physically. And it was the opportunity for me to do it at a later age, what a lot of people had done, you know, in their teens. And of course, the science wasn't at that point where it is now. But these new discoveries were just beginning to come to light. And the thing is, I'm a multidisciplinary scientist. My primary degree is in the earth sciences, but I've got a strong background in life sciences, vertebrate biology, invertebrate biology, math, physics, computer science. And I say that because it helps me to stay current with the new discoveries. And a lot of the discoveries that tell us who we are, well, they're not shared in the mainstream. So you won't see them in the classrooms or in the textbooks. Even today, we have medical doctors come to our live events. And when I share these discoveries, they come to me during the break and they say, how come we don't know? Why aren't we teaching this stuff? So the program where you saw me was specifically about new discoveries of the human heart. And the 40,000 specialized cells, they're called sensory neurites, that were discovered in 1991. They were not published until 1994, that tell us that in our heart, we have a neural network separate from the neural network in the brain. It thinks independently, it feels independently, it remembers independently, it interprets our life potential independently. And there's a whole conversation that we can have about that. Opens the door to just a vast new understanding of even what the heart is all about, in addition to pumping blood. But the program you came to, we were talking about the even later discoveries that we can harmonize that neural network in the heart with the neural network in the brain. Two separate organs we harmonize into a single potent system, and that system opens the door for us to maximize our potential, our mental potential, our emotional potential, certainly our physical potential in terms of performance, and our physiological potential in terms of the immune system and resilience and healing within the human body. So the reason this is so interesting is because the way to access that potential is it parallels some of our most ancient and cherished spiritual traditions about focusing awareness in the human heart, not because of a religion, although there are religions that have wrapped their ideas around these principles. But this is pure physiology. It's creating a state that we call coherence between the heart and the brain. And when that coherence is created, it's not limited to the heart and the brain. It extends to every cell and even onto the molecular and the genetic level of the human body. And this speaks volumes to optimizing our potential as athletes. So it's a long answer to a short introduction, but I wanted to lay that down so we could tie into it in this conversation.
One of the most important things that I have learned interviewing all of these high performance leaders is that clarity of mind is crucial to your success. And what good is clarity of mind without clarity of sound? Which is why today's podcast is sponsored by Rode. We across 𝗪𝗟𝗟𝗡 use exclusively Rode audio equipment in order to do all of our stuff. If you are an influencer, if you're just a person out there trying to make some good content for your stuff at home, wherever it is, Rode is by far the best audio partner we have ever had. We have been using their stuff for almost 5 years now. Has never let us down. Truly incredible company, especially with all of the other affordable things that you guys can get from them. Check out the link right down below and enjoy the rest of this podcast. So much of the ancient knowledge and history is so shrouded. Some of it has been hidden. Some of it's occult. Some of it's been manipulated from us. And it's so hard, if you just sat someone down and said, figure this out, right? What have you found?
Well, this is the thing. A lot of times, information isn't good or bad or right or wrong. Discoveries aren't good, bad, right or wrong. Technology is not good, bad, right or wrong. It's the thinking that is in place that applies those technologies or those applications. We're literally talking about an internal technology. It's a very different way of thinking about the human body. We are a soft technology. And here's what I mean by that. Hard technology we're familiar with outside of the body. Computer chips, wires, sensors, chemicals in the blood. Hard technology. We are so advanced and we are so sophisticated, we are now recognized as a soft technology. We're not computer chips. We are neurons and cell membranes. We are ion potentials moving across those cell membranes. And here's the thing, we self-regulate. We're the only form of life that we know of today that has the ability to self-regulate all of those potentials. Now, there are many conversations that we could have, and I do these in the books and the live events, about different applications of this self-regulation. The foundation of coherence is based upon 3 very, very simple steps. It's been reduced to 3 simple steps, and I'll share them, and then you will see them reflected in some religions and some spiritual traditions, shamanic traditions, monks and nuns in Tibet, curanderos in the Yucatan, all use some facet of this. So now the acknowledgement that there is a neural network in the human heart that thinks, feels, and remembers independently of the brain. That's where the action begins. So when we want to establish the coherence of 3 simple steps, the first step is we shift our awareness from our thinking mind, where we're all conditioned to be. And it's not a bad place to be, I don't want to say that. But we shift our awareness into the heart. And one of the ways to do that is what I'm doing right now. It's a reflex for me. You simply touch your heart center gently. You can use 1 finger, 2 fingers. In the Middle East, they use an entire palm. Christian traditions make a big cross right there over their heart. But here's the key. Wherever your body feels the sensation of the touch, your awareness will go to that place. So if you want to focus on your heart energetically in your heart, the physical heart is actually over here, but energetically, you touch your heart center and you allow your awareness to go to that place. That's the first step. It usually helps to close your eyes a little bit, just to kind of tune out the outer world. The second step is really important. It is a shift in breath. The key is that breath is a trigger point for the parasympathetic nervous system. And we want to be in a relaxed state. Now, I want to speak to this because even in heightened physical activity, Olympic athletes, running, gymnasts, swimmers, you can achieve this coherence, high heart rates, but still be in a relaxed state. It's a very different way of thinking for some people. So first step, focus on the heart. Second step is to slow the breathing. And here's the key. There's a ratio. And what's important is that the exhale is for a period of time longer than the inhale. And so I live at high elevation. I have a greater lung capacity. It's different for me than it would be maybe for somebody at sea level. So, but typically maybe you inhale to the count of 4 and then you release that breath to the count of 6, or some ratio where the exhale is longer than the inhale. Now our bodies, this is a language, and our bodies interpret when we are breathing that way. The only time you would do that in nature is when you are safe. So what you're saying to your body is, I'm safe in this moment. When you're safe, then your body is able to kick in with a chemistry that reflects that safety. And that is the chemistry of healing, rejuvenation, regeneration of the cells, optimization of the cells. And this makes perfect sense, because if you're not safe, if you're in fight or flight, then the only thing that's important is that fight or flight, and your body shuts down all those other physiological functions. Your body says, we don't need to heal right now. We don't need to regenerate right now. We don't need to optimize anything. We just need to get the hell out of here or get to a place that's safe. So you're telling your body, I'm safe. That triggers the parasympathetic nervous system, the relaxation response, okay? And those, and focused in the heart. The third step is really key here, and it's a very, very different way of thinking, is where we begin to create an emotion or a feeling in the heart, even if the world around us is not giving us a reason to have that feeling. So I want you to think about this. We're conditioned to have a feeling in response to the world. And what we are empowered to do, and what scientists have found is a positive feeling of gratitude works pretty much for everybody. You can be grateful for a million things. But feelings of gratitude, appreciation, care for anything or anyone. It can be for a family pet. It can be for your kids. You can have gratitude for your life, for your success, you know, for all the opportunities. There's a lot of things to be grateful for. When we create the feeling of gratitude in the place where the parasympathetic nervous system has been triggered, in the place where the breath is slowed, in the place where the focus is in the heart, here's what happens. A heart begins to send an electrical signal to the brain that is optimized. And it's a very low frequency. It's 0.1 hertz. So when the signal between the heart and the brain, 0.1 hertz, that creates a harmony or a coherence between the heart and the brain. You're now creating coherence between these two neural networks. But here's the beautiful thing, Will, that coherence, it's not limited to the heart and the brain. It extends throughout the entire human body. It extends all the cells, all of the systems, all of the electrical, electrical and magnetic, and even there are, I'm hesitating now because I don't know how deep we want to go into this, but even studies suggest even on the quantum level that we're influencing this coherence. Now I'm going to go one step further. My primary degree is as a geologist. I'm an earth scientist. And this is one of those places where I get to talk about earth science. Under our feet, we have a magnetic field. And there are I didn't know we were going to talk about this. I would have brought the chart. But people can Google this. There's something that is called Earth magnetic field line resonance frequency. Earth magnetic field line resonance. And when you look at a chart of where those resonances are, the first big spike, 0.1 hertz, is the first big spike of the magnetic resonance under our feet. When we harmonize our heart and our brain and create coherence within our bodies, what we're actually doing is even beyond that, is we are aligning or creating coherence to the very fundamental magnetic systems of the planet we live on. That is where our healing and our optimization begins. Now, Now, once you have that coherence, you can do whatever you're going to do. You can do that. I'm a martial artist. You can do it before your martial arts. I'm not a competitive runner, but I still run at times. And you will optimize your running. Any kind of sports, because you begin to, in the presence of heart-brain coherence, it opens the door to other extraordinary human potentials that all contribute to athletic performance. Super memory, super learning, super recall. We begin to think and respond. Our reflexes are optimized in the presence of this heart-brain coherence. Our immune system is optimized. Our longevity enzymes are optimized, all in the presence of this coherence. So for me, there are other things that we can do, but I think, if somebody dropped me onto a football field and said, Greg, you got 5 minutes to tell these people how to become the best version of themselves for the performance that they're expected to do, and then you're out of here in 5 minutes, I would begin with this fundamental experience of coherence, because it opens the door. Once that coherence is established, there are passive benefits and there are active benefits. So passive benefits, just by creating that coherence, you've already got a stronger immune system. You've already awakened longevity enzymes. You've already created greater resilience, physiological resilience to the stress of life. Just by doing what you're doing passively. Now, actively, once you are in that state, and some people may not be interested in this, but once you're in that state of coherence, that's where you open the door to deep states of intuition, affirmations, prayer. And this is where the spiritual and religious traditions come in. That is where you open the door to, this is where the intelligence agencies like the NSA are interested in this. You open the door to deep states of intuition and Jason Bourne kind of stuff. Like you walk into a room and in 1/100th of a second, your eyes have seen everything in the room. The question is, can you recall from your brain what your eyes have seen? Does your brain know how many electrical outlets are in the room? How many windows are in the room? How many light fixtures are in the room? How many paintings? And what is the subject of the painting that's on the wall? Well, the answer is yes, because your eyes saw it. The question is, can you create that recall? And with practice in this state of coherence, as we do in some of our courses, these are now active benefits. You have to engage the coherence to achieve these. And some people aren't interested in that. So just for pure optimization of athletic performance, 3 minutes of heart-brain coherence, and then you go do what you're going to do. And this is, there are all kinds of testimonies of athletes, and all across from professional baseball, football. We've had conversation with some of the professional ball teams here in the US. Now, I want to be very honest and fair about this. The pioneering research institute who has brought so much of this forward is in Northern California. It's an organization called the Institute of Heart Math, HEARTMATH. It's all one word. They have a website, heartmath.org. And I invite our listeners, you can go and look at the research papers. You can get as deep as you want into the science. It's some pretty heady stuff. You can see the applications, and the papers have been written about physiology and about athletic performance and resilience in general. I'm not their employee. I have worked with them almost since their inception in 1991. I've toured with them. We do fundraising, we do webinars, we become good friends, but I'm not their employee. But I want to honor the work that they have done to make these ideas accessible to the everyday person so that we can be the best version of ourselves in whatever we choose to apply that to, whether it's in business, or it's in academia, or it's in competition, or it's athletic, or it's our relationships, or just being healthy. Just being healthy. So we covered a lot of ground in a short period of time, and I just want to see.
What I was going to say is, well, I was going to say a lot, obviously, but what shocks me is I was expecting you to say lifelong practice, 6 weeks to 30 days, like 3 minutes, only 3 minutes.
Here's the thing. It's like a muscle. And the more you use it, first of all, it will become almost second nature. You won't have to think about it much. I've done coherence pretty much at least once a day, every day since I learned about 1991. At the very least, I do it at bedtime, because I think if you go into a deep regenerative sleep in the presence of coherence, you stack the deck in your favor. But also, I've learned if you know you're going to have a very difficult phone call during COVID, for example, in the lockdowns, I could not be present to honor my contractual obligations for producers, and it was hard on the producers financially. And I had very difficult phone calls, and before I went into those phone calls, I would create that coherence. I go into my office, close the door. 3 minutes is a minimum. And here's why I say 3 minutes. What the science shows is that after 3 minutes of good coherence, I mean, really, real good coherence, 3 minutes, the effects last up to 6 hours after those 3 minutes. Among those effects, first of all, the DHEA level of the human body. DHEA is a precursor to every hormone in the body, including testosterone for performance, progesterone, estrogen. The DHEA levels will increase 100% in the body. No change in diet, no supplements, because this is our internal medicine cabinet. This is what we're doing. After 3 minutes, and the cortisol levels, the stress hormones, will decrease by about 23% during that same 3 minutes. And those effects will continue. So it optimizes, the physiology for sleep. If you're going to have a difficult conversation with your partner that you share your life with, or a business partner, here's what happens. And this is getting into some of the psychology of coherence. When you create heart-brain coherence, you begin to think literally from the neural network in the heart. Here's why that's important. The neural network in the brain is based on the left brain and the right brain. That's polarity. Left brain and right brain is the ego. You're always going to have good and bad and right and wrong and success and failure, worthy, not worthy, which are good sometimes. But when you create the coherence before a difficult conversation, here's what happens, Will, and this is so powerful, is that you're not in that ego loop. So you're going to hear from the heart. The heart's not a polarity organ like the brain is. So that means you can take criticism better without a knee-jerk response and saying something you wish you hadn't said, or escalating a heated situation that's already going to be heated anyway. This allows you, doesn't affect, I mean, you're not making anybody else do anything, but you are choosing how you respond, and your response will influence how other people will respond. I was the youngest in the corporate boardroom. I was the first technical operations manager at Cisco Systems in Palo Alto, California, when Cisco was just beginning. I was youngest in the boardroom. And when I had an idea, and I knew that idea was going to get shot down, this was right in the early 90s, right when HeartMath folks were sharing information. I would use this technique, and I would still take the hits. But this is one of those things, you just have to experience it. Words, I can describe it, but words will fail. You have to experience it, because you're still taking the hits. You're still hearing the criticism, but it feels different. It means something different, and you can allow for it. And you're not just manning up and putting on a facade. It's not inciting the anger. You're not stuffing the anger because you're hearing it differently. It empowers you or me or whoever it is to listen to the other person in a really healthy way. And it really helps to diffuse for leaders. And if you're talking about athletic performance, everyone in that team is a leader in their own specialty. And together, those leaders all form the team. And when ego comes into a team, we all know what that can do, because it's true on an athletic team. It's true in the corporate boardroom.
Sure.
It can destroy the bond of the team. So it's not, in the Western way of thinking. I was born and raised in a very conservative rural community in northern Missouri in the 1950s. And we didn't think like this.
Okay.
In those days, the idea of resilience, if you had a tough time, the idea of resilience was suck it up and get over it. That was your resilience, and just man through, just power through. Well, we have a whole generation of men who died young from hypertension, cardiac events, because they never learned. They powered through with a facade to the outside world, but inside they were still seething with the anger or the hate or the feelings of lack of self-worth. And what coherence does is it gives us the ability to transcend that, to become the best version of ourselves. You don't have to stuff it because you're not feeling that anger. You're hearing another person's opinion, and that's their opinion. It doesn't mean it's right, wrong, good, or bad. It doesn't mean it's true. And so this is a very, very powerful tool in psychology as well. And psychology is a big part of any athletic performance. I was a gymnast when I was in school. I was on the pommel horse, and I can tell you, every performance it began in my mind. If I couldn't see myself doing it successfully, it couldn't happen. And so all of this comes together. It's a really beautiful place where science, spirituality, but not religion, and human potential all come together to help us be the best version of ourselves, create the best world possible, create the best team possible, create the best outcome possible.
One of the most important things you can do if you're trying to earn more money is learn new skills. Stacking skills is one of the greatest things you can do in order to bring value to yourself and the people around you, especially one like learning a new language. I bet most of you guys had no idea that I could speak 9 languages, and that we have a YouTube channel with almost 100,000 subscribers where I do exclusively just that. And we break down the method for exactly what an idiot guy like me has done in order to do this. It's not complex, it's not complicated, and most of you guys have probably used the traditional method, and the traditional method sucks. That's why you can't speak any Spanish after 4 years of going to high school and taking Spanish week in, week out. If you want to learn to speak a language the fastest, easiest, and most natural way, click the link right down below. Golarimi Languages. We've got the method for you. Check it out. I've always wondered too, because this, as you denote the difference between spirituality and not religion, society is having a hard time, I would say, accepting this. And I've seen some discussions that you've had on that subject. If I can just, address that. When are we going to be at a place where we can officially assess, look, because the mainstream paradigm is still for sure one in which where what you're saying, despite its scientific evidence or the research that's going into it, is still not a generally accepted term. Now, I do feel that it's changing, and I'm probably sure the growth of the internet and things like that has made it easier for people to get into. But it does seem that, for instance, just to give an anecdote, when we make videos and I do interviews with some of the highest paid, most successful athletes in the world, they will all talk about their inner state, their mentality, how important this is. When we go to convey that information to people, a lot of times those videos will bomb. A lot of times people don't understand the relationship between that. So I would love to know what you think about the future.
Well, this is part of a larger conversation. We are at a critical crossroads in our society, and I would argue even in civilization beyond just our society, where technology is playing a role that we've never seen, not just in our lifetime, we've never seen in the history of humankind. And where we are in this crossroad, this is a subject of heated debate. We are conditioned to accept that we are powerless victims, weak and powerless victims of a world outside of our bodies that we have no control over. And if you're a victim, it means you need a savior. And our savior is being touted as technology. And we're being told that if we will accept chemicals into our blood, if we'll accept sensors into our skin, computer chips in our brain, by the way, the FDA has just approved the first computer chip implants in the human brain, that if we will accept technology into our bodies, or another way of saying this, Will, is if we will replace our natural biology with synthetic technology, that somehow we will triumph. We're at this very critical crossroads. This isn't going to go on for 5 or 10 years. It's the next couple of years where these decisions are going to be made. Here's the problem. When we replace our natural biology with synthetics, the function of that biology that's been replaced begins to atrophy. Our bodies are very smart. Our bodies begin to say, oh, I no longer need to create that immune response, or I no longer need to produce the neurons in the brain because that chip is going to do it for me. You do that in one generation. Next generation, the biology says we no longer need those functions and they begin to atrophy. This is how you lose a species. So what I'm seeing is, I don't think it's going to be, we're all going to go one way or another way. I think two parallel societies are emerging. There is one society that's all in on the hip, cool, sweet technology, because that's what the marketing is showing us. I got to tell you, man, I know what's happening, and I'm still impressed by how sexy and how slick the marketing is. So there are people that are going to, it's already happening. Northern Europe, there are people that have 8, 10, 12 RFID chips implanted into their bodies, one for the credit card, one for the security system at work, one for the security system in their home. They're taking chemicals in the blood to replace their own immune system. And now the immune systems are shutting down because the body says, you don't need me. So there's one segment of society that's going to go all in on all of the tech. But I live in a rural area in northern New Mexico, and where I connect with my community is at my little co-op, my food co-op. And so I go grocery shopping, and I got to tell you, there's another society that's emerging, salt of the earth people, really good people. And they say, man, I don't know what the hell's going on. I don't understand it. It's moving too fast. We've got to get back to the basics. They're pulling their kids out of public schools so they can instill the values in their children that they feel are important. Number one, they're growing their own food. They are healing their bodies using traditional medicine. They're not rejecting medical science. They're saying we don't need it to the degree that we've been led to believe we need it. And that segment of society is emerging alongside the people that are all in on everything. So here's what's going to happen. We're going to do what humans always do. We're going to have these two parallel tracks of society, and we're going to check each other out because that's what we do. And we're going to say, who's happier? Who's healthier? Who has a greater sense of well-being? Whose lives are more deeply fulfilled? And the answer, whatever the answer is to that question, will inform others, and that will determine the direction that we go. Ultimately, my sense is that we'll probably find someplace in between. We'll probably take a little bit of technology, but we won't give our humanness away to the technology. And already in athletics, this is already a hot topic. How much transhuman technology can be in the human body and still be considered fair competition? That's a whole conversation. We can do Gregg and Will part 2. We can have that conversation. Because the transhuman movement,
100%.
trans means beyond. So transhuman means beyond human. These are the technologies that are now being, it goes way beyond steroids, way beyond electrical stimulus and things. I mean, this is really high-tech stuff that's going all the way down to the genetic level. How much of that, it's happened so quickly, it's not regulated. The technology has advanced faster than the morality of how we bring it into our lives. And athletics is one of the first places it always shows up, because what is considered fair, what's considered legal, authentic athletic competition and authentic athletic capabilities. Are you still authentic if 30% of your body is artificial intelligence and robotics? These are big questions, and they're on the table for us right now. So all of this, to answer your question, it all comes back. Spirituality, in its truest sense, is about relationships. It's about our relationship first to ourselves, to our own body. It's about our relationship to the earth, our relationship to other people, our relationship to the world around us, our relationship to God, or whatever we believe a higher power to be, our relationship to the future, our relationship to the past. That's all spirituality is. Religions came along later and wrapped the rules and the dogma around the spirituality. Now, in some cases, that can be a good thing, because that religion brings us together as society and as a community, and strong bonds of family and relationships. It can do good things. But when a religion asked us to reject or to hate someone who doesn't believe the same thing that we believe, then that very religion is dividing us, and it's actually working contrary to our truest spiritual nature. So that's why I make the distinction between spirituality and religion. And what we're talking about is actually a deeply spiritual topic, because it's about our relationship to our own bodies. And here's the beautiful thing. Well, I'm going to say this as we bring this to a close. I have another interview I'm going to have to jump off. But here's what's so interesting. I was with a group of young people in a live event, and they said, Gregg, computer chips in the brain, man, why wouldn't you want that if we can use that computer chip to talk to our computer with no keyboard? How sweet, is that? So, and they were surprised at what I told them. So here's my response to that. Computer chips are awesome. I've worked in high tech since the 70s. I have a lot of respect for the technology. Computer chips are fast. They are efficient, very logical. But here's the thing. Any computer chip is limited by the physics of the stuff that chip is made of. In other words, the information can only travel as fast as between one atom and another. In silicon, for example, there's a limit to how fast that information can travel from one atom to the other. So you will always reach an upper limit with external technology. Now, here's the beautiful, cool, awesome, sweet thing. What is the upper limit of the human body? What is the upper limit of a human neuron? The answer is we don't know. And the reason is what makes this so powerful. Because every time we push a neuron to what we believe is a limit, we are designed to adapt and to expand and open the door to a greater limit. Every time we push the human body to what we have believed is a limit, then we discover that the body adapts to that limit if we give the body what it needs. And if we allow the body to do, bodies are so smart. If we allow our bodies to do what the bodies do, they will exceed those limits. I remember this as a competitive runner before, when the 4-minute mile used to believe, scientists used to say humans will never exceed the 4-minute mile. Until the first person exceeded the 4-minute mile, then everybody was exceeding the 4-minute mile. Somebody had to do it first. And this is the thing, we are literally a highly advanced, technologically sophisticated, soft technology that appeared on Earth 200,000 years ago. Scientists agree with that date. The truth is, we don't know where we came from, because the DNA, when we pull the DNA from the fossilized remains of the beings that we used to think were our ancestors, we find that we're not. We didn't descend from Neanderthal. When we pull the DNA from the earliest versions of anatomically modern humans, is what we're called, and we compare their genome to ours, what we see is that we haven't changed in that 200, that genetically, we have not changed. We appeared on Earth 200,000 years ago with the potential that we still have not fully met that potential today. And it's not an accident. The genetic mutations that give us our extraordinary potential and our humanness, our ability of empathy, sympathy, compassion, the ability to self-regulate our bodies, that was given to us by someone or something 200,000 years ago, and science does not know and is not equipped to have that conversation, because they're locked into the idea that we're the product of Darwin's idea of evolution. So evolution's a fact. As a geologist, I see it in the fossil record, plants, animals, insects. It breaks down when it comes to us. So the point being, and there's a whole conversation around this, something happened 200,000 years ago. We emerged mysteriously. And the truth is, we don't know where we came from. There are ideas and theories, but we don't know with certainty. We were given this extraordinary potential that we're only beginning to understand. Athletics is one of the ways that we explore the limits of that potential. And as we honor the gift of our bodies and allow our bodies what to do, what they are designed to do through our athletic performance, I think we celebrate our humanness as we learn to become the best version of ourselves and inspire other people in the ways that we do to find that for themselves. And I think it's a beautiful thing. I can't think of anything more exciting.
Absolutely. Gregg Braden, easiest podcast guest ever.
Well, I'm sorry. I just realized I did most of the talking, and I apologize.
Please, I cannot wait for our next one. It is the greatest thing ever. I want to thank you a ton. Guys, we will link to everything. Gregg's got tons of stuff, books, shows, stuff. We'll link to all that in the show notes or in the description box. Gregg, thank you a whole lot.
Will, I want to thank you for your trust, because this is unscripted. The truth is, you didn't know what we were going to. I didn't know what we were going to do. But I want to thank you for being a hub of a community. I know for a lot of people, this is a very different way of thinking, because it's not what we were conditioned to accept. But I think as we embrace the deep truth of what the best science of the modern world is telling us how we work, the wisdom of our ancestors was telling us how you apply those principles. And as we can marry those into our everyday lives and whatever we want to do with our everyday lives, that is where we learn to become the best version of ourselves. You are the hub of a community, reaching out to people and bringing people together to explore precisely that. So I want to thank you, my brother, for what you're doing. I look forward to Gregg and Will part 2.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Guys, we'll see you later.